They still whisper of Silent Island, as if the name itself might wake something that prefers to sleep. Mariners give it other names: Gull's Grave, the Morrow Head, the Island of a Single Lamp. But on old charts, half erased by salt, it is simply a slate circle 30 miles east of Cape Wren. The first recorded trouble was small and ordinary: a lightkeeper who missed his watch on a September night in 1893. The second was not ordinary at all. On the morning of 3 November 1937, the fishing sloop Iris returned to Harrow's Wharf with 3 men, 2 nets, and a single child's shoe wrapped in oilcloth. Nothing else. The logs of the Iris are preserved at the Harrow County Records, ink faded, handwriting shakier than the ocean. The captain, Elias Morrow, wrote only one line for that day: "We took the wrong current, island silent, found shoe, no bell." By then the island had already acquired its rumor that a figure patrolled the rocks at dusk, always masked, always alone. They called him the Phantom Guardian. He wore a dark coat that reached his calves and a carved mask like a gull's skull. Some said he had been the keeper of the lighthouse long before a keeper had been appointed. Others said he was the last of a drowned congregation that would not leave the shore. The townsfolk of Harrow, carpenters, widows, constables, passed these stories at the bar and at market with the same tremulous half-smile reserved for storms. There is a line between harmless tale and warning. It was crossed the night the children came back wrong. On 12 October 1926, 2 sisters from the village of Kessler vanished while playing along the island's causeway at low tide. A month later, a group of children from a distant workhouse were found on Silent Island's northern scrub, standing perfectly still beneath the beaming beacon. They said nothing. Dr. Agnes Halloway, an anatomist and a woman not given to superstition, was summoned. She wrote in a report, stamped and bound in the Harrow archives, that the children's throats bore no scar, their lungs were full of sea salt, and their tongues were too pale. The magistrate ordered them returned to Kessler. The children walked home with their eyes fixed upon the horizon. That is where the official record ends. Unofficially, the magistrate wrote elsewhere, in a private ledger later found burned beneath the floorboard, of men in masks moving through the town at night, and of a commission that arrived in 1939 with briefcases and badges that bore no name recognized by any registry. These were the masked agents the old ledger called the custodians. They came from a body that pretended to be benign, the Imperial Commission on Coastal Affairs. Their mission, the ledger suggested, was to secure maritime anomalies and matters which disturbed the peace between sea and shore. They were careful. They bought the rights to Silent Island by writ and sealed the deeds. In exchange, they promised to make the island vanish from public concern. There were, as always, those who would not let such promises stand. In the summer of 1951, a curate from St. Hilara's named Father Rowan Crockett petitioned to land upon the island in order to recover the missing girl's grave. He was refused at the jetty by a man whose face he could not see. Behind glass, a man in a dark coat with a mask of carved bone held open a ledger and recorded Father Rowan's name with a single, precise flourish. Rowan returned with a brass bell, intending to ring a mass and call whatever voices might remain. The next morning, the bell was found at the edge of the quay, its clapper sawn out and its chain cut. Father Rowan left Harrow within the week. In his letters thereafter, he wrote as a man who hears a midnight knock and discovers his own name carved upon the sill. The island endured other interventions. In 1979, a young archaeologist named Frank Wells was given permission, a gracious and suspicious permission, to perform a brief survey. Wells's field notebooks were smuggled out by his assistant after he did not return. Those pages reveal a different sort of history. Beneath the peat and reef they found a low stone enclosure older than the beacon, a ring of stones like a throat. In the center lay a child's wooden toy, a horse with its face worn smooth by being held. Someone had carefully buried, in a shallow pit beside the toy, a bound leather volume. The cover bore a single word, stamped in a hand grown shaky by salt and sleep: account. Within were entries dated from 1890 through 1943. They were not penned by a single hand. They were a ledger of small, terrible things: the arrival of the first custodian, a count of lost lanterns, and the ledger's keeper's note that voices gather at the lantern on second tide. One entry, dated 24 December 1914, reads, "One girl answered. I gave the child's voice to the lamp. She glowed once like a match. It is warm, yet it will not speak." The writing grows more erratic. The last visible page is torn. Beneath the tear, someone had written in block letters the single instruction: remember silence. Each of these discoveries deepened the island's ache of secrecy until 1994, when a local journalist named Miriam Hale published an exposé. She had been given access to a crate of records that the Commission had deemed non-essential. Her notes named no perpetrator. It did not need to. She wrote of a photograph, sepia, edges scalloped, showing a line of children on a pier, all wearing identical woven caps and staring neither left nor right. Behind them stands a tall figure in a dark coat. His mask is not a gull's skull, but a smooth white face with two eye holes. The caption reads simply, "Attendance, 1926." She wrote that the Commission had altered the photograph. The faces of certain officials had been carefully scratched out. Soon after the article, Miriam's house burned. The only thing recovered from the charred ruin was a scrap of fabric printed with a child's name, Eliza. It is here that certain tales ask the listener to choose: believe in ritual or believe in bureaucracy. The island asked them both. There are entries in the burned ledger that speak of the covenant, and in the private letters of a retired custodian, now gone to bone, there is mention of keeping the voice for the lamp, that it may warn when the tide brings other things. Voices, preserved like moths in amber, bound to a pulley and a bell. This is the image that haunted Harrow. The phantom guardian, in some accounts, was the last man who refused to trade language for law. In others, he was the island's warden, one who took what the sea could not and kept it from the world. I went to Silent Island with those things in my pack: Wells's notebooks, Miriam Hale's clipping, a battered torch, and a grant of permission that smelled faintly of oil. The ferry put me ashore at dawn on a day of low fog. The island lay as it always lay, a smudge of granite and lichened walls. The causeway was exposed, gulls circled without calling. The lighthouse, built in 1887, leaned like an old man listening. I found the stone ring, and there the toy horse with its face worn away. The grass still smelled of salt and lamp wax. And if there is nothing supernatural in the world, there is certainly human cunning. Footprints led from the ring to the lower path, then vanished. At the edge of the beacon, where ivy had pushed between mortar, I found carving, letters, small and patient. Two names. One I recognized from a faded birth register, Eliza Morrow. Beneath it, a line I did not know at all: "For the guardian, keep safe." The carved letters were not fresh. They were older than my flashlight's glow. The lighthouse hatch, when I tried it, yielded no lock but a single small bell fixed within, a ship's bell with its clapper missing. Around its lip someone had fastened a strip of leather, and into that leather had been stitched dozens of small teeth, like a seam of white keys. Below the bell in the dark, a shallow room breathed. On the table lay an object wrapped in oilcloth. When I unwrapped it, the shavings of salt fell away, and a voice came into the air. Not from throat, but from wood, a child's voice, thin as a reed, reciting, "Hush." It was not my mind that heard it, but the world itself. The gulls ceased their circling. I dropped the toy. The voice did not belong to the child I expected. It belonged to no one and to everyone at once. It said another word, and the sound was like the closing of a lid. Guard. At that moment, the wind blew the hatch closed behind me. It was not an accident. Footsteps moved outside. One, many, like someone counting. Through the wood, I saw a shadow pass, a tall figure with a mask of bone, and someone else, smaller, hunched and narrow-shouldered, with the tilt of children who had learned not to look at flames. They spoke in a language of clicks and soft consonants that might have been ritual, might have been instruction. If they spoke to me, the wall made their voices flat as tablets. I found one thing that morning that Wells had not found, an inventory list penned beneath the bell. It was a paper scraped from the pages of an accounting book. The list was meticulous. Each line recorded a name and a commodity. Eliza Morrow, voice, taken 3rd November 1937. Next, Kessler Sisters, voices, taken 12 October 1926. Some entries were simple, lanterns replaced. Others more terrible, assemblies quieted. At the bottom, in a hand that trembled from fever or from remorse, one line was underscored twice. Guardian has been keeper for 26 years. Lamp must remain fed. There is a twist